Pinewood, Oregon. Population 15,320. A place where everyone knows each other by name, and local news spreads faster than a forest fire. Here, in a two-story brick building on Main Street, is the office of attorney Michael Lawrence. Case number 67,429B, State v. Hart, Michael muttered as he opened a worn folder. The clock read 11:47 p.m. The lights in the reception area had long since been turned off, and his secretary, Judy, had left 6 hours ago, leaving a note on the desk reminding him of his daughter's birthday. Michael had promised to leave early, but, as usual, he hadn't kept his promise. He ran his hand through his thinning hair, which at 43 still retained its chestnut hue, although gray was already showing at his temples. His tired eyes were red after 14 hours of work. In front of him lay the case of a woman he had never met, another story among thousands like it, another file in his cabinet. Rebecca Hart, 35 years old, convicted of participating in an armed robbery at a jewelry store, resulting in the death of a security guard. Sentence: 15 years in prison, of which she had already served 3. Appeal denied. Michael was the third lawyer she had asked to review her case. "What do you want me to find here, Rebecca?" he whispered as he looked through the witness statements. Nothing unusual. 2 masked robbers, a woman driving a car, a botched robbery, a security guard pressing the alarm button, a shot, death, a police chase, an arrest. Rebecca's fingerprints on the steering wheel, her hair on the driver's seat. The accomplices were never caught. His phone vibrated. A message from Sarah. "Dinner's in the fridge. I'm going to bed. Love you." Michael looked at the photo in the frame on the table. Him and Sarah on a beach in Hawaii 5 years ago. Their last real vacation. The last trip where they were truly happy together, not just tolerating each other's company. He put his phone down without responding. "Are you sure you want to take this case?" Lisa Chang looked skeptically at her boss. Her sharp features expressed disbelief. At 29, she was the best assistant Michael had ever worked with. A quick mind, a sharp tongue, and unwavering loyalty. The perfect combination for the profession. "Something doesn't add up here, Lisa. Take a look for yourself." Michael handed her the folder. The key witness's testimony contradicts the ballistics report. The lawyer in the first trial didn't even notice it. "And that's why you're going to a women's prison in Oregon on your only day off. Does Sarah know?" Michael grimaced. "She's used to it." "Poor woman," Lisa muttered, but Michael pretended not to hear. The drive to the prison took 2 hours. The gray building behind the barbed wire seemed to be part of the surrounding landscape, as cold and lifeless as the mountains in the distance. The security check was long and humiliating. Metal detectors, patrol dogs, endless questions from guards. The meeting room resembled a school classroom, except that instead of desks, there were metal tables bolted to the floor. A woman in a light blue prison uniform sat at one of them. Her blonde hair was pulled back into a simple ponytail. She wore no makeup, and her hands were folded calmly on the table. When Michael entered, she looked up. Her eyes were green, deep, with golden flecks around the pupils. "Mr. Lawrence, thank you for coming." Her voice was quiet but clear. No prison slang, no aggression. "I'm Rebecca Hart." Michael sat down across from her and placed the folder on the table. "Miss Hart, I've reviewed your case. There are a few things that need clarification." "Of course. Ask me anything." She smiled, and wrinkles appeared at the corners of her eyes. "But first, if you don't mind, how is it outside? What's the weather like?" The question caught him off guard. "Sunny, cool. Autumn is in full swing." "Autumn." She closed her eyes for a second. "I miss the smell of fallen leaves. Everything smells the same here, chlorine and despair." Something in her manner of speaking, in her direct gaze, made Michael forget his prepared questions. Instead of a dry recitation of facts, they talked for 2 hours. Rebecca told him about her life before her arrest, working as a waitress, taking evening psychology classes, her failed marriage to a drug addict who had dragged her into his world. "Jason knew how to manipulate me," she admitted. "I believed we were just going to give someone a ride. When I realized what was happening, it was too late. I panicked, wanted to leave, but they came back running with guns, covered in blood. They threatened me. I feared for my life." "Why didn't you tell the court?" "My lawyer was court-appointed. He met with me twice for 15 minutes. He said the jury wouldn't believe me, that it would be better to admit guilt and ask for leniency. She looked at her hands. I listened to him. It was a mistake. Michael made a note in his notebook. What about your ex-husband? Could he confirm your version of events? Jason died a month after my arrest. Overdose. Rebecca looked up, her eyes dry. You know what's ironic? I'm glad I ended up here. I finally quit drinking, got my GED, and started going to school. I even helped run a support group for women with alcohol addiction. Michael looked at her with growing interest. Rebecca didn't fit the typical image of a convicted criminal. She spoke intelligently and looked him straight in the eye. She didn't blame others or portray herself as an innocent victim. Mr. Lawrence, I'm no saint. I've made mistakes. But I'm not an accomplice to murder. I need a chance to prove it. When the meeting was over, Michael knew he had made his decision. Miss Hart, I'll take your case. I can't promise miracles, but I'll do everything I can. Her face lit up with hope, the first real emotion she had shown during the entire meeting. Thank you. Can I ask you something? Please call me Rebecca. All. You look excited, Sarah remarked when Michael returned home. They were sitting down to dinner, which she had reheated. New case? Yes, a woman in state prison. I think she's innocent. Sarah sighed and put down her fork. At 40, she was still an attractive woman. The same blonde hair and figure she had in college when they met. But a gulf as wide as Michael's career had long since grown between them. You always say that, and every time it takes you away from me for weeks. It's my job, Sarah. What about our life? We talked about taking a trip for our anniversary, remember? 15 years of marriage is no joke. Michael rubbed his nose. I remember, but this is important. A woman lost 3 years of her life for a crime she didn't commit. And I'm losing years with a husband who lives for his work. Sarah stood up from the table. Sometimes I feel like you're more in love with your clients than you are with me. Michael wanted to argue, but he kept quiet. Lately, their conversations always ended the same way, with accusations and heavy silence. Over the next few weeks, Michael immersed himself in Rebecca's case. Together with Lisa, they studied police reports, interviewed witnesses, and consulted with ballistics experts. With each passing day, Michael became more convinced that Rebecca was telling the truth. His visits to the prison became more frequent. They discussed the details of the case, but the conversation often strayed off topic. Rebecca was interested in his work, his family, and his life in Pinewood. She was a good listener and asked the right questions, and Michael found himself telling her things he hadn't even shared with Sarah. Are you happy, Michael? She asked one day as their meeting was coming to an end. Happy? That's a strange question. It's not that strange. You work a lot, you help people, but do you really live for yourself, or do you just exist? He looked at her, not knowing how to answer. No one had ever asked him that question before. I don't know, he admitted honestly. Do you? Can you be happy here? Here? Rebecca looked around at the bare walls of the meeting room. No, but I can dream of happiness, of freedom, of starting a new life. At that moment, a guard entered the room. Time's up. Michael gathered his documents. I'll be back next week. I have a meeting with a ballistics expert. Rebecca stood up but didn't leave right away. Michael, thank you for believing me. He nodded, suddenly embarrassed. See you, Rebecca. Frank's bar was quiet, a typical Tuesday in Pinewood. Michael was sitting at the bar with a glass of whiskey when someone sat down next to him. Michael Lawrence, I hear you're working on the Hart case. Michael turned. Next to him sat a burly man in his 50s with a military bearing and cold blue eyes. Detective Morris, long time no see. James Morris had been with the Pinewood Police Department for 30 years. He had either arrested or saved half the town from trouble. He ordered a beer and turned to Michael. You're making a mistake taking her on, counselor. Hart is guilty. I worked on that case myself. There are some holes in the case, James, you know that. What I know is that security guard Frank Douglas is dead, father of 3 children, and the woman you're trying to get off the hook was driving the car the killers got away in. You know there's a difference between driving and planning a murder. Morris took a sip of beer. I know she had enough time to get away. I know she didn't call 911. I know that a week after her arrest, $10,000 appeared in her bank account. This was news to Michael. That's not in the file. Check it yourself. First National Bank. Morris stood up, leaving his beer unfinished. Be careful, Lawrence. This woman isn't as simple as she seems. After the detective left, Michael sat for a long time, staring into his glass. What if he was wrong? What if Rebecca was really guilty and had skillfully manipulated him? But when he closed his eyes, he saw her face, open, honest, with eyes full of hope. No, he couldn't believe it. He had to find out the truth, whatever it was. Lisa Chang placed Rebecca Hart's bank statements on Michael's desk. Morris was right. $10,000 was deposited into her account 8 days after her arrest. Transferred from Blue Ridge Investments. Did you check? Michael looked through the documents with growing concern. A shell company, registered 2 weeks before the robbery, closed a month later. No real activity. Michael leaned back in his chair and rubbed his eyes. 3 weeks of investigation, and instead of answers, only new questions had emerged. What does Rebecca say? She swears she knows nothing about the money. Lisa crossed her arms over her chest. Do you believe her? Michael looked at Rebecca's photo from the case file pinned to the board, green eyes staring straight into the camera. Yes, he replied after a pause. I do. Then where did the money come from, Michael? And why isn't this transfer listed in her financial report submitted to the court? That's what we have to find out. Michael stood up and put on his jacket. I have a meeting with her in an hour. Again? Lisa raised an eyebrow. That'll be the third time this week. We're preparing an appeal, Lisa. Time is short. She looked intently at her boss. It's just work, right? Michael paused in the doorway. Of course. What else could it be? When Rebecca was brought into the meeting room, Michael noticed the change. Her hair was neatly styled, and she wore minimal makeup. She looked encouraged. Did you bring good news? She asked, sitting down across from him. Michael noticed that she had switched to using his first name. When had that happened? A week ago? 2? Not exactly. We need to talk about money. He laid a copy of his bank statement in front of her. Rebecca studied the document carefully. I don't know what this is, she said, her voice remaining calm. I've never heard of Blue Ridge Investments. $10,000, Rebecca. 8 days after you were arrested. It looks like a payment. A payment for what? For going to jail. Her eyes flashed with hurt. You think I took the money to take the blame for someone else? I don't know what to think. All I know is that if the prosecutor uses this against us, we're going to be in a very difficult position. Rebecca reached across the table and touched his fingers. A light, fleeting touch. The first physical contact between them. I didn't take the money, Michael. Someone wants it to look that way. He wanted to believe her. He wanted to believe her more than anything. Okay, he said finally. I'll look into all the possibilities. Maybe it has something to do with your ex-husband, his debts, or his business. Maybe. Jason was involved with all kinds of people. Drugs, debt. She shook her head. Was Jason one of the 2 men in masks? Rebecca stared at her hands for a long time before answering. I'm not sure. Honestly, it all happened so fast. They were wearing masks and yelling at me. I panicked. Michael came home late that evening as usual. The house greeted him with an unfamiliar silence. Sarah? He called as he walked into the living room. There was a note on the coffee table. I've gone to my sister's for the weekend. We need to talk when I get back. Sarah. Michael sat down on the sofa, clutching the note in his hand. When had their marriage become like this? A series of notes and rare dinners in silence? He tried to remember the last time they had really talked, laughed together. His phone vibrated in his pocket. A message from Lisa. Found something interesting on the Hart case. The police forensic report contradicts witness #3's testimony. I'll show you tomorrow. Michael put his phone away and went to his study. His desk was a mess of documents related to Rebecca's case. He sat down and began reviewing the materials again, taking notes until late into the night. Witness 3, Martha Gomez. Lisa opened the folder with the documents. She worked at a coffee shop across from the jewelry store. She claims she saw Rebecca talking to men in masks before the robbery. According to her, it looked like they were discussing a plan. And The forensic report determined that the windows of Rebecca's car were tinted. From the distance where Gomez was standing, she couldn't physically see if anyone was talking in the car. Michael took the documents and quickly scanned them. This is important, very important. Why didn't the defense use this in court? Because the expert report came out 2 months after the verdict. The police requested an additional investigation of the car, but no one connected the results to the witness's testimony. Or someone deliberately concealed that connection, Michael muttered. I need to talk to Martha Gomez. The Sweet Dreams coffee shop hadn't changed much in 3 years. Martha Gomez, a heavy-set woman in her 50s, was nervous when Michael introduced himself. I already spoke to the police, and I testified in court. Mrs. Gomez, the investigation determined that the windows of the car were heavily tinted. You couldn't see who was driving. Martha became even more nervous. I saw a silhouette, and I saw men leaning toward the window. They were definitely talking. You couldn't see who they were talking to. There was a woman there. Martha's voice trembled. Detective Morris said it was a woman. Michael froze. Detective Morris told you there was a woman driving before you gave your statement? Martha lowered her eyes. He showed me a photo. He said it was the criminal who participated in the robbery. He asked if I had seen her. I wasn't sure. The face looked familiar. Mrs. Gomez, do you understand that this is a violation of procedure? The detective influenced your testimony. I said what I saw, she repeated stubbornly, but her eyes betrayed her uncertainty. Are you prepared to repeat that under oath? In court? Martha was silent for a long time. I don't know. Morris manipulated the witness, Michael almost shouted, pacing the prison visiting room. He showed her your photo before the interview, basically telling her who she was supposed to recognize. Rebecca looked at him in surprise. You're really angry about this. Of course I'm angry. It's a procedural violation, Rebecca. It could be grounds for an appeal. And you're going to do that? File an appeal? I'm already working on it. Michael sat down across from her. There are other leads. The ballistics don't match the testimony of a key witness, and now this. Rebecca smiled. A happy, genuine smile that transformed her face. You're an amazing man, Michael Lawrence. I'm just doing my job. No, you're doing much more than that. She leaned forward. You believed me when no one else did. You're fighting for me. I'm fighting for the truth. What if the truth isn't that important? What if all that matters is what we believe? Michael frowned. I don't understand. Sometimes we believe what we want to see. We create our own reality. Her gaze became distant. Jason always told me I was too trusting. Maybe he was right. Rebecca, what are you talking about? She came back to reality. Nothing. Just thinking out loud. She smiled again. Tell me about yourself, Michael. What do you dream about when you're not saving people like me? The question caught him off guard. I don't know. I haven't dreamed in a long time. That's sad. Dreams are all I have here. She looked at him as if she could see right through him. And you seem to be in your own personal prison. My life isn't that bad. But you're unhappy. I can see it in your eyes. Her voice softened. Do you and your wife love each other? Michael wanted to brush off the question, to say it was none of her business. But instead, he heard himself say, We used to. Now we hardly speak. It must be hard to live with someone you no longer feel connected to. What about you? Did you love your husband? Jason? Rebecca smiled bitterly. I loved the idea of him, the image he created for me. Then I realized it was all a lie. And what did you do? I tried to leave, several times. He found me, swore he'd change. I believed him. She shook her head. Stupid, right? No, it's human nature to believe those we love. Their eyes met, and something changed in the atmosphere. The silence became thick, filled with unspoken words. You're obsessed with this case, Lisa said, when Michael canceled a meeting with a client to work on Rebecca's appeal. And with her. I'm doing my job. No, you're doing much more than that. You're missing meetings with other clients. You're staying late at the office. Your wife called 3 times this week. Michael looked up from his documents. Sarah called here? Yes. She wanted to know if you were really working late, or if it was an excuse. And what did you tell her? The truth, that you're here, buried in papers, and you don't notice anything around you. Lisa crossed her arms over her chest. Michael, as your friend and colleague, I have to say that what's going on is not normal. What exactly do you think is going on? You're falling in love with your client. Michael stood up abruptly. That's absurd. Really? Then why did you blush? Why are you defending yourself? I don't have to answer those questions. No, you don't. But you owe it to yourself to ask them. Lisa moved closer. What do you really know about her, Michael? Mysterious money transfers, conflicting statements. What if Morris is right about her? He's wrong. Are you so sure because you have facts? Or because you don't want to believe otherwise? Michael didn't answer. When he returned home that evening, Michael found Sarah packing her things. Are you leaving? He asked, standing in the bedroom doorway. Yes. She didn't look up from her suitcase. I'm staying with my sister for a while. Sarah, we need to talk. About what, Michael? About how you're never home? About how even when you are here, you're thinking about work? Or, she finally looked at him, about the woman you're spending all your time with? It's not what you think. No? Then what is it, Michael? Explain it to me. He wanted to find the right words, but they eluded him. She's innocent, Sarah. I have to prove it. And our marriage? Does that need proving too? Because I don't feel like we're married anymore. It's just a difficult period. Sarah closed her suitcase and stood up straight. This difficult period has been going on for 2 years, Michael. I'm tired of waiting for you to come back. Not just your body, but your soul. What do you want me to do? I want you to decide what's more important to you, your obsession with work or our marriage. Michael was silent, and his silence spoke louder than any words. That's what I thought, Sarah said quietly. She picked up her suitcase and walked past him toward the door. Sarah, wait. No, Michael. I've waited long enough. The front door closed, and Michael was left alone in the empty house. The appeal has been filed officially, Michael told Rebecca when they next met. Now we have to wait. How long will it take? A few months, maybe longer. She nodded, suddenly serious. And you? How are you? Fine. Liar. She smiled gently. Something's wrong, I can tell. Michael looked at his hands. Sarah left. I'm sorry. Really? Of course. Her eyes were full of sympathy. No one should be alone. I'm not alone. I have my work. Work won't hug you at night. It won't make you laugh when you're sad. She touched his hand. You need someone, Michael. Someone who will see the real you. Who am I, really? He asked, almost in a whisper. A man who believes in justice, who fights for those whom everyone else has abandoned, who sees the good even in people like me. Their fingers intertwined, a fleeting breach of the rules that neither of them wanted to break. If we had met in another life, she began, and didn't finish. In another life, he echoed. The moment was interrupted by the entrance of a security guard. Detective Morris was waiting at the courthouse entrance when Michael emerged after filing his appeal documents. Lawrence, I hear you've filed an appeal in the Hart case. Yes, and I have grounds, including your methods of working with witnesses. Morris took a step closer. I was doing my job, catching criminals. Hart is guilty, and you know it. I know you violated procedure and may have influenced a witness's testimony. I don't give a damn about procedure when it comes to justice. Frank Douglas was my friend. He left behind a wife and children. And that gives you the right to disregard the law? Morris took a flash drive out of his pocket. This is the surveillance footage from the ATM across the street from the jewelry store. It was a technical glitch and didn't make it into the case file. Take a look for yourself, then decide if it's worth ruining your career and your life for this woman. Michael took the flash drive. Why are you giving this to me? Because I've seen people like you, good guys who get taken in by women like her. I don't want another victim on Rebecca Hart's scorecard. In the empty office, Michael inserted the flash drive into the computer. The recording was blurry, but he could clearly see a white sedan parked in front of a jewelry store. 2 men in dark clothes were standing near the car talking to the driver. One of the men leaned toward the window, and at that moment, the recording showed the driver, a woman with blonde hair, handing him something that looked like a gun. Michael rewound the recording and watched it again. There was no doubt about it. Rebecca had handed the weapon to one of the robbers. She had lied to him all this time. Michael hadn't been to the prison in 2 weeks. Rebecca had called the office, but he had avoided talking to her. "What's going on, Michael? You filed an appeal, and now you're hiding from your client?" Lisa asked, looking at the flash drive he was twirling in his hands. "I need to verify the authenticity of a piece of evidence." "Video footage. Rebecca may have been more involved in the crime than she claims. And that's why you're avoiding her? If the footage is authentic. Then your client lied to you," Lisa concluded. "And then what?" "Then I have to decide whether to continue defending a person who committed a serious crime." "You're a lawyer, Michael. A lawyer's job is to defend clients, guilty or innocent." The video expert called Michael that evening. "Michael, I've analyzed the recording. The footage is authentic, but there's a problem with the dates." "What kind of problem?" "The metadata shows that the recording was made a week before the robbery. The quality is too poor to identify the car or the person." "What about the object being handed over? It looks like a gun, but it could be a phone, a wallet, anything." "Thanks. It seems like someone really wants Rebecca to stay in prison." In the courtroom, Judge Richardson was studying the appeal documents. "Mr. Lawrence, are you claiming that there were serious violations during the investigation?" "Yes, Your Honor. Detective Morris showed a photo of my client to the witness before the interrogation. In addition, the ballistic evidence does not match the testimony." The prosecutor objected. "These violations are insignificant. Rebecca Hart was driving the car in which the killers fled." "Because she was threatened," Michael retorted. "She was a victim of coercion." The judge leaned back in his chair. "I will review the materials and render my decision next week." In the meeting room, Rebecca looked haggard. 2 weeks, Michael. I thought you'd abandoned me." "I had to sort something out. Morris gave me a video recording of a woman who looks like you handing something to the robbers." She didn't look shocked. "And you believed it?" "The recording is real, but it was made a week before the robbery. The quality is poor. I didn't hand over a gun, and I didn't plan the robbery, Michael. Why is Morris so obsessed with my guilt?" "Because he hasn't found the real culprits." She looked him in the eye. "He needs a scapegoat." Michael took out a folder. "The judge granted our appeal. You can be released on bail until the new trial." "Bail? How much?" $50,000. "I don't have that kind of money." "I know, but I do." "Are you out of your mind?" Lisa stood in Michael's office. "You're going to mortgage your house for your client's bail. It's temporary, until the retrial." "What if she runs away? You'll lose everything." "She won't run away." "You can't know that. This is an emotional decision by a man who—" Lisa trailed off. "Who what?" "Who's in love with his client," she finished quietly. Michael turned away to the window. "I believe she's innocent. It's my duty to do everything I can to defend her." "Even if it ruins your life?" He didn't answer. Rebecca walked out of the prison in simple jeans and a white blouse. She looked younger and more vulnerable in freedom. "Hi," she said, smiling uncertainly. "Hi. How do you feel?" "Strange. The air smells different." "I got you an apartment. Nothing fancy, but it's a roof over your head." "Thank you. I don't know how I can ever repay you." "Just show up in court when the time comes." On the way, Rebecca asked, "Does Sarah know what you did?" "We're not together anymore. She filed for divorce." "I'm sorry." "Don't be. Our marriage had been falling apart for a long time." In the apartment, Rebecca looked around as if she couldn't believe it was real. "I don't know what to say." "Don't say anything. Rest. Get used to your freedom." Michael headed for the door. "Don't go," she said suddenly. "I don't want to be alone tonight." Michael knew he had to leave, but he couldn't. "Okay, I'll stay for a little while." On the balcony, watching the sunset, Rebecca asked, "Who is the real Michael Lawrence?" "You know everything about me." "No, I know the lawyer. I want to know the man." "There's nothing to tell. I've always been predictable. School, college, internship, marriage. And you always wanted more?" "How did you know?" "I can see it in your eyes. They have the sadness of someone who hasn't found what they were looking for." "And you? Who is the real Rebecca Hart?" "I don't know. For too long, I've been what other people wanted me to be." "And what do you want to be?" "Free. Not just from prison, from the past." Michael felt the barrier between them dissolve. I have to go, he said, standing up. At the door, he turned around. Be careful. Morris is still convinced you're guilty. Detective Morris stood at the grave with a bouquet of flowers. I almost crushed them, buddy, he said quietly. She'll pay for what she did. A woman in a black shawl emerged from the darkness. Are you Detective Morris? Yes. Who are you? Carol Myers. I knew Rebecca Hart. We were in prison together. And what do you want? To help. She told me something in prison. What exactly? Not here. Let's meet tomorrow. Rebecca got a job as a waitress at a cafe where the owner didn't ask questions about her past. Michael stopped by every day to watch her work. You're scaring the customers, she joked. I just want to make sure you're okay. One evening, as he walked her home, Rebecca said, Someone's been following me, Michael. Are you sure? Yes, a man in a gray sedan. He parks across the street from the cafe. Morris? No, someone else. I'll talk to Morris, if it's his people. No! Rebecca grabbed his arm. The less attention, the better. Lisa placed a folder on Michael's desk. I found something about Rebecca. What exactly? Her real name is Regina Holland. She changed it before she met Jason Hart. Are you checking up on my client? Someone has to. Regina Holland was involved in an insurance fraud in Nevada. The charges were dropped, but the police were convinced she was guilty. Why didn't she tell me? Maybe because it would ruin her image as an innocent victim? Michael, you're risking everything for a woman who may not be who she says she is. I'll talk to her about it. But the conversation never took place. On his way home, Michael saw police cars outside Rebecca's house. What happened? He asked an officer. Assault. A woman was injured. The attacker fled. What woman? Hart. Rebecca Hart. Where is she? How serious is it? She's in the hospital. She has a stab wound in her shoulder. She'll live. Detective Morris came out of the house. Seeing Michael, he headed toward him. Lawrence, you got here fast. What happened? Your client was attacked in the stairwell. A man in a mask. She fought back, was wounded, but managed to escape. Who was it? We don't know yet. No witnesses. The cameras aren't working. Morris narrowed his eyes. Interesting coincidence, isn't it? She's barely out of prison and she's the victim of an attack. What do you mean? Maybe someone from her past decided to settle a score. Or what, Morris? Or it's a setup to get sympathy in court. She almost died. Superficial wound. Strange for someone who was really trying to kill her. You're sick, Morris. Obsessed. No, Lawrence, you're obsessed. And that obsession will be the death of you. The hospital ward was flooded with cold fluorescent light. Rebecca lay on the bed, pale, her shoulder bandaged. You look terrible, she said when she saw Michael. I should be saying that to you. He sat down next to her and took her hand. The doctors say the wound isn't serious. I know. I was lucky. Her eyes were cloudy from the painkillers. He was aiming for my heart, Michael. I dodged him at the last moment. You're safe. There's a police officer on duty outside the ward. Michael paused, gathering his thoughts. Rebecca, I need to ask you about Regina Holland. Her face froze. Who told you? Does it matter? Why didn't you tell me about the name change? About the case in Nevada? Rebecca turned away toward the window. Because it's not relevant to the current case. It does if the prosecutor finds out and uses it against you. The jury won't see an innocent victim of circumstance. They'll see a woman with a criminal past. You're right, I should have told you. She sighed. I changed my name to start with a clean slate. In Nevada, I worked for an insurance company. I was accused of forging documents, but they couldn't prove it. Why didn't you tell me? I was afraid you wouldn't believe I was innocent of the robbery. Too many coincidences. Who would believe me? I'm your lawyer, Rebecca. I need to know everything. You're more than just my lawyer, Michael. That's why I was afraid to tell you the truth. Rebecca was released from the hospital 3 days later. That first evening, she insisted on going to a local bar called Joe's. She needed to taste freedom, as she put it. The bar was crowded. They were sitting in a corner when Michael noticed the change in Rebecca's expression. She was looking at a man at the bar, tall, with graying temples. Who's that? Michael asked. No one, just someone I thought I recognized. Rebecca quickly looked away, but the man had already noticed her and nodded with a barely perceptible smile. 5 minutes later, Rebecca excused herself and headed for the restroom. The man followed her. Michael waited a minute and then followed. In the hallway, he heard muffled voices. "You're taking a risk coming here," Rebecca said. "I needed to make sure you were okay after the attack," replied the male voice. "I'm fine, but you'd better leave. My lawyer shouldn't see you." "Your lawyer or your new boyfriend? Lauren told me how you manipulate them." "Lauren exaggerates. Everything's under control. Go." Michael quickly returned to the table. A minute later, Rebecca returned, slightly flushed. "Everything okay?" he asked. "Yes, it's just a little stuffy in here," she smiled. "Shall we go? I'm tired." The man at the bar had already disappeared. Carol Myers sat across from Detective Morris in a cafe. A middle-aged woman with sharp features, she smoked nervously. "Everyone talks in prison," she began, "especially at night. Rebecca told me about the robbery, how it didn't go according to plan." "What exactly did she say?" Morris turned on the tape recorder. "That they planned to just take the jewelry from the unprotected display cases. No violence. But the security guard pressed the alarm button, and one of the guys panicked." "Did she name names?" "No, but she said they were brothers, one older, one younger." "Brothers?" "Yes, and she also mentioned money, that she got her share, but less than she expected." 10,000? "Exactly. She said it wasn't enough for 3 years of her life." Morris made a note in his notebook. "What else?" "She talked about her lawyer, about how easy it was to manipulate him, how he was in love with her and would do anything she asked." "Are you willing to give a formal statement?" Carol stubbed out her cigarette. "No, I'm afraid of her. I just wanted you to know the truth." Michael sat in the park with Detective Morris. "I have some information about your client," Morris began. "Her former cellmate contacted me. She said Rebecca was planning a robbery, that she got $10,000 as her share." "She could be lying." "She could be, but that explains the mysterious transfer to Rebecca's account after her arrest." "What other evidence do you have?" Morris took out a folder. "Did you know that Rebecca worked at an insurance company with a woman named Lauren Hart?" Michael tried to remain calm. "And Lauren is the sister of Jason Hart, Rebecca's ex-husband. Jason also has a younger brother, Rick, the brothers Lawrence, the same brothers the cellmate mentioned." "Where are they now?" "Rick disappeared after the robbery. Lauren was spotted in Pinewood last week, around the same time Rebecca was attacked." "Do you think Lauren tried to kill Rebecca? Or maybe it was all staged to get sympathy before the new trial?" "You don't have any real evidence, Morris, just assumptions." "What if I told you that the man Rebecca was talking to at the bar yesterday was Rick Hart?" Michael froze. "Are you following us?" "Her. And I'm not the only one. I noticed a surveillance vehicle near her apartment. A private firm. Someone is very interested in your client." Lisa was waiting for Michael in his office with new findings. "I checked Regina Holland's case in Nevada. She was charged with insurance fraud. Do you know why the case was closed?" "Why?" "The key witness refused to testify, a woman named Lauren Hart." Michael sighed. "Did Lauren know Rebecca before she met Jason?" "They worked together. In fact, they were close friends, Michael, not just colleagues." Michael told Lisa about his conversation with Morris and what he saw at the bar. "Do you think she's been lying to you all this time?" Lisa asked. "I don't know what to think, but I need to talk to her." Rebecca opened the door with a smile that vanished when she saw the look on Michael's face. "What's wrong?" "Who was that man at the bar? The one you were talking to by the restrooms?" Her face paled. "Have you been following me? I saw you both leave, and I heard part of your conversation. Who is he, Rebecca?" "No one. Just an old acquaintance." "Rick Hart?" She froze. "What?" "Your ex-husband's brother, one of the robbers. The one who may have shot the security guard." "Michael, I don't know what you're talking about." "Enough with the lies!" He raised his voice. "I know you knew Lauren long before you met Jason. You worked together at the insurance company." Rebecca slowly sank into the chair. "You don't understand." "Then explain. The truth, Rebecca. Or should I call you Regina?" She was silent for a long time, then looked up. "Yes, I knew Lauren. We were friends. She introduced me to Jason when I was in a difficult situation after the scandal at the insurance company. And the robbery? Did you know about it beforehand? I suspected it. Jason and Rick were always whispering. Lauren let me in on part of the plan. She said the brothers wanted to take some rings from a jewelry store. No weapons, no violence. And you agreed to help? Not right away, but Jason threatened me. And Lauren convinced me. She said it was easy and safe. And the man at the bar, was that Rick? Rebecca nodded. He wanted to warn me. He said Lauren was furious about my release, that she thought I might turn them into the police. Did she attack you? I don't know. I didn't see the attacker's face. Michael tried to make sense of the new information. Why didn't you tell me everything from the beginning? Because I was afraid of losing you. Her eyes filled with tears. You were the only one who believed in me. I was blind, Rebecca. I let my feelings cloud my judgment. Your feelings were real. So were mine. Michael shook his head. I don't know what's true and what's a lie in your story. I lied about the details, but not about the main thing. I didn't plan to kill the security guard. I don't deserve 15 years in prison. I'm still your lawyer. I'll represent you in court, but it's over between us. He headed for the door, but her voice stopped him. Michael, I'm scared. Rick said Lauren wants to get rid of me, that I know too much. Go to the police. And tell them what? That I lied at the first trial? That I was in cahoots with the robbers? They'll send me back to prison. I'll talk to Morris. Maybe we can work out a witness protection program in exchange for your testimony against Rick and Lauren. Detective Morris agreed to meet at the police station. Michael told him everything he knew. So she was in cahoots with them after all. Morris shook his head. I knew it. She didn't know there would be a shooting, that someone would die. In her case, it's at most accessory to robbery, not murder. And you want me to offer her a deal, after everything she's done? If it helps catch the real killers, Rick and possibly Lauren, yes. Morris thought about it. I'll talk to the prosecutor, but I can't promise anything. Thanks. Also, Rebecca is afraid that Lauren might try to kill her. She needs protection. I'll send a patrol car to her house, that's all I can do. Michael returned home late at night, emotionally and physically exhausted. His house seemed empty and cold without Sarah. He poured himself a whiskey and sat down in his chair, thinking about everything that had happened. How could he have been so blind? How could he not have noticed the obvious inconsistencies in Rebecca's story? Michael, who was in love, saw only what he wanted to see. The doorbell rang. Michael looked at the clock. It was almost midnight. He looked through the peephole. Rebecca was standing in the doorway, hugging herself as if she were cold. Michael opened the door. What are you doing here? Can I come in? I need to talk to you, it's important. He reluctantly let her in. Rebecca walked into the living room looking around. Nice house. I wish I'd seen it before. What did you want to talk about, Rebecca? About us, about you, about your decision to help me despite everything you found out. I'm just doing my job. No, it's more than that. She moved closer. You still care about me despite the lies. That's touching. I spoke to Morris. He promised to arrange for a defense and a possible deal with the prosecutor if you testify against Rick and Lauren. Really? She raised her eyebrows in surprise. I didn't think he'd agree. He wants to catch the real killers, too. Rebecca nodded, walking over to the coffee table where a glass of whiskey stood. Can I have some too? Sure. She poured herself a drink, looking around the room. You know, I often imagined how we could have lived together, in a cozy house like this, you and me. Rebecca, I know you think I lied to you about everything, but my feelings were real, Michael. I really did fall in love with you. That doesn't matter anymore. It does to me. She took a sip of whiskey. What if we had a chance to start over? Go somewhere far away, together? Michael shook his head. No, too many lies, too much pain. Her face hardened. So that's it? You're just turning your back on me? After everything we've been through? There were lies between us, Rebecca. You used me. I loved you. She raised her voice. Everything I did was for us. There is no us, Rebecca. There never was. Something in her eyes changed. The emotional look was replaced by a cold, calculating one. You know, you're right. I used you. And you know what? It was so easy. You wanted so badly to believe you'd found your soulmate that you didn't notice how I was manipulating you from the very beginning. Michael froze. What are you saying? The truth, Michael. Isn't that what you wanted? She smiled. Lauren was right. You were the perfect target. A lonely, idealistic lawyer with a savior complex. So this was all planned? From the beginning? Not from the beginning. When I ended up in prison, I just needed a good lawyer. But then I saw how you looked at me, how you believed every word I said, and I realized I could get much more. The attack? Was that staged too? No, that was Lauren. She was always jealous of me. She was supposed to be just an accomplice in the robbery, but she wanted more. And when things didn't go according to plan and Rick shot the guard, she needed a scapegoat. I was the perfect candidate. Michael slowly backed away toward the phone. I'm calling Morris. Why? Rebecca took a gun out of her purse. To tell him what a naive fool you were? Michael froze. What are you doing, Rebecca? What Lauren should have done but couldn't, getting rid of the problem. She pointed the gun at him. You know too much, Michael, and now that you're no longer under my control, you're dangerous. Think about what you're doing. Killing a lawyer will attract too much attention. Oh, it won't look like murder, more like a desperate suicide. A lawyer, abandoned by his wife, obsessed with his client, who couldn't handle the pressure. No one will believe that. They will, especially when they find your suicide note confessing that you helped me escape the country, violating your bail conditions because you loved me. She took a step forward, holding the gun confidently, like someone accustomed to weapons. You know what's funny, Michael? Even now you're trying to find something good in me. You're hoping I'm bluffing, that I couldn't kill a man who was so good to me. Michael looked into her eyes, searching for a glimmer of doubt, regret, humanity. But all he saw was cold calculation. Was it Rick? He asked. Rick shot the security guard? Yes. He's always been impulsive, nervous. When the guard reached for the alarm button, Rick panicked and fired. And you? Were you driving? At first, Lauren was. Then we switched, so there wouldn't be any traces of her in the car. The plan was good, but Rick ruined it. She pointed the gun at his heart. You know, in a way, I really loved you, Michael. You were the only one who saw me as a person, not a criminal. Then don't do it. It's not too late to fix things. It's too late. She took the gun off the safety. Goodbye, Michael. The shot rang out deafeningly in the silence of the house. Lisa Chang pulled up to Michael's house at 8:30 in the morning. They were supposed to meet at the office at 9 o'clock, but Michael wasn't answering his phone, which wasn't like him. After ringing the doorbell several times with no answer, Lisa used a spare key. In the living room, she saw him. Michael was lying on the floor, motionless, with a pool of blood on his chest. A gun lay nearby. On the coffee table was an almost empty glass of whiskey and a piece of paper. With trembling hands, she dialed 911. Detective Morris was examining the crime scene as the forensic team finished collecting evidence. What do we have? He asked the medical examiner. Gunshot wound to the chest. Close range, but not a contact shot. Time of death was approximately between 11 p.m. and 1 a.m. Looks like suicide? At first glance, yes. Gun next to the body, suicide note. But there are inconsistencies. The angle of the bullet entry is not typical for a suicide, and there are no traces of gunpowder on the hand. Morris nodded and walked over to the suicide note. I can't live with what I've done. I fell in love with my client, crossed all professional boundaries, and helped her escape. Rebecca is innocent of the charges against her. The real criminals are Lauren and Rick Hart. My only way out is to take my own life. I'm sorry, Sarah. I'm sorry, Lisa. Michael Lawrence. Too convenient, Morris muttered. It explains everything too neatly. He turned to Lisa, who was sitting in the kitchen, still in shock. Miss Chang, when was the last time you spoke to Mr. Lawrence? Last night around 8 o'clock. He called from the station after meeting with you. What did you talk about? He said he had revealed the truth about Rebecca, that she was involved in planning the robbery, but not in the murder of the security guard. He wanted to help her make a deal with the investigation. Did he mention that he was going to meet with her? No. On the contrary, he said that it was over between them. That he would represent her in court as her lawyer, but that there would be no personal relationship anymore. Did he talk about suicide? Did he seem depressed? No, Lisa exclaimed. He was determined, focused. This isn't suicide, detective. This is murder. Morris nodded. I'm leaning toward the same conclusion, and I have a prime suspect. Rebecca Hart's apartment was empty. Neighbors said they heard her leave in the middle of the night with a suitcase. Put out a warrant, Morris ordered. Check the airports, bus stations, car rentals. In the trash can, an officer found charred pieces of photographs. One fragment showed a woman who looked like Rebecca with a tall man. Looks like Rick Hart, Morris said. They were planning to meet. Maybe he helped her get away. At the Blue Pine Motel on the outskirts of a neighboring town, Rick Hart smoked nervously, sitting on the edge of the bed. Across from him, Rebecca packed her things into a new suitcase. We need to move faster, he said. They must have found the body by now. Don't rush me, Rebecca snapped. I only need to take the essentials. Why did you kill him? We could have just disappeared. He knew too much. He was ready to go to Morris with evidence against us. Besides, now the police will be looking for us in Mexico because of his suicide note, and we're going to Canada. Rick shook his head. Lauren was right about you. You take too many risks. And where is Lauren now? On the run with no money, no support. We have a plan and the means to carry it out. Rick's phone rang. That was my contact in the police. Morris has put us on the wanted list. All exits from the county are being monitored. Then let's go now, Rebecca said decisively, zipping her suitcase. We still have a head start. Lisa sat in Michael's office, looking through his notes on Rebecca's case. He made copies of all the documents, she told Detective Morris, including information about Rebecca and Lauren's friendship in Nevada and the strange money transfer after the arrest. What about Rick? Any information on his whereabouts? Lisa rummaged through the papers. Michael checked property rentals under Hart's name in neighboring counties. Here, the Blue Pine Motel in Pinecrest, a room under Richard Hart's name, paid for a week in advance. Morris immediately grabbed the phone and gave orders. Did you know how deep he was involved with her? Lisa sighed. I warned him. Michael always believed in people. He saw the good even in those who didn't deserve it. That quality cost him his life. Yes, but it also made him special. Patrol cars without sirens surrounded the Blue Pine Motel. Detective Morris, wearing a bulletproof vest and with his gun at the ready, directed the operation. They may be armed. The suspects are considered dangerous. Room 14, second floor. The door to room 14 flew open just before the police reached the stairs. Rick Hart ran out first, followed by Rebecca with a suitcase. Seeing the police, Rick froze, but Rebecca instantly pulled out a gun. Drop the weapon, Hart! Morris shouted. You're surrounded! Instead of answering, Rebecca fired and ran toward the woods behind the motel. Rick, stunned, remained standing with his hands up. Secure the area, Morris commanded as he approached Rick. You're under arrest for suspicion of complicity in the murders of Frank Douglas and Michael Lawrence. She killed Lawrence, Rick said quietly. I had nothing to do with it. Rebecca ran through the woods, clutching the gun. She had to drop the suitcase. It was slowing her down. She could hear police sirens, dogs barking, and the voices of her pursuers. Running to the stream, she stepped into the water. The cold water reached her knees. Rebecca moved against the current, hoping to throw the dogs off her trail. When she came out of the stream on the other side, she heard the crack of branches behind her. Turning around, she saw a policeman with a dog approaching the stream. She ran further into the forest. Finally, she ran out to the edge of the forest and saw the highway in the distance. All she had to do was cross the open field and she would reach the road. She had already taken a few steps when she heard a voice. Freeze, Hart. Drop your weapon. Rebecca froze. 20 meters away stood Detective Morris, pointing a gun at her. It's over, Rebecca. Rick is already giving his statement. He doesn't know anything, she shouted. He can't prove anything. We found the gun that killed Michael. Your fingerprints are on the handle. Witnesses saw you entering his house last night. Rebecca gripped the gun tighter. Instead of trying to prove I'm guilty, you'd be better off looking for Lauren. She planned this whole thing. We already have Lauren. She turned herself in last night after you attacked Michael. She told us everything about the robbery, your role, how you set each other up." Rebecca's face contorted with rage. "She's lying! I didn't plan to kill the security guard." "Put down the gun, Rebecca. Don't make this worse for yourself." For a moment, it looked like she was going to obey. Rebecca lowered the gun, then raised it again, aiming at Morris. The shot rang out before she could pull the trigger. The detective's bullet hit her in the shoulder, and Rebecca fell to the ground, screaming in pain. Morris approached her, throwing the gun aside. "Rebecca Hart, you are under arrest for the murder of Michael Lawrence and for aiding and abetting the murder of Frank Douglas." 3 months later, the court handed down its verdict. Rebecca Hart was sentenced to life imprisonment without the possibility of parole for the first-degree murder of Michael Lawrence and for aiding and abetting the murder of Frank Douglas. Rick Hart, who admitted his guilt in the murder of the security guard, was sentenced to 25 years in prison. Lauren Hart, who cooperated with the investigation, received 15 years for her role in both crimes. After the verdict was announced, Lisa met with Detective Morris at a cafe across from the courthouse. "Justice has been served," Morris said, "although it won't bring Michael back." "He believed in justice more than anything else," Lisa replied, "and in people, even when they didn't deserve it. That was his strength and his weakness." Lisa looked out the window at the courthouse. "You know what's ironic? If he hadn't fallen in love with her, if he hadn't fought so desperately for her release, she would have stayed in prison, and the real killers would never have been found." "Fate has a strange sense of humor," Morris agreed. "I've made my decision," Lisa said after a pause. "I'm going to continue his work. Michael Lawrence's office will remain open, only now I'll be running it." "He would have approved," the detective nodded. In the Oregon State Women's Prison, Rebecca Hart looked out the window of her cell at the same view she had seen 3 years ago. Everything was back to normal, only now there was no hope of release, only eternity behind bars. She thought about Michael, about his trusting eyes, about how easy it had been to manipulate him, and at the same time, she thought about how he had made her feel like a human being, even if only for a short time. Perhaps in another life, if she had been a different person. But in this life, Rebecca Hart was exactly who she was: a manipulator, a liar, a murderer. And now, she had paid the ultimate price.